Commander Vex-Nine scratched his scaled chin with one of his forearms, staring at the surveillance footage for the 15th time that morning. The Galactic Academy's most sophisticated anti-cheating system had just thrown what humans would call a tantrum, and he was not amused. "So let me get this straight," he muttered to his assistant, Lieutenant Zorb, the Mentari Beast. "Refused to work?" Zorb's tentacles wiggled nervously. "Not exactly refused, sir. More like panicked and tried to burrow through the floor when it sensed the human student approaching the examination hall." Vex-Nine's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sure sign of his growing irritation. The Mentari Beast was their pride and joy, a telepathic creature from the distant Kethrak system that could detect dishonest thoughts from 3 solar systems away. Well, apparently not when humans were involved. "Have you tried?" "I don't know. Bribing it with those expensive psychic crystals it loves so much?" "Sir, we offered it a month's worth of premium mind stones. It just whimpered and hid behind the storage unit." The Academy had spent roughly half the GDP of a small moon acquiring this creature. Its job was simple: sit in the corner during examinations, look intimidating with its 6 glowing eyes and crystalline spines, and mentally flag any student attempting to cheat. For 3 years it had been flawless. Not a single case of academic dishonesty had slipped past its telepathic surveillance, until Marcus Webb showed up. Marcus was the first human ever admitted to the Galactic Academy for Advanced Sciences, and frankly, most of the faculty wished he would have stayed on his little blue planet. Not because he was incompetent, mind you, quite the opposite. The human had scored higher on the entrance examinations than any species in recorded history, including the notoriously brilliant Ceres Cerbrax from Andromeda. "Maybe the beast is just having an off day," Zorb suggested hopefully. Vex-Nine's laugh was about as pleasant as a plasma rifle misfiring. "Zorb, that creature has never had an off day in its entire existence. It once detected a student trying to cheat from orbit. Zorb." The intercom crackled to life, interrupting their conversation. Commander Vex-Nine to the examination hall immediately. "We have a situation." Both officers exchanged glances that somehow conveyed a mutual understanding. This was definitely not going to be their day. The examination hall was in complete chaos when they arrived. Students from 12 different species were clustered in groups, chattering nervously in languages that sounded like everything from wind chimes to garbage disposals. Professor Klix, a particularly stuffy Regellian with an ego larger than his home planet, was frantically waving his arms. "Commander, thank the cosmic forces you're here. We have a complete system failure." "What kind of failure, Professor?" "The human is in there." Klix pointed toward the sealed examination chamber, "and our Mentari Beast has barricaded itself in the supply closet. It won't come out. We can't proceed with the advanced quantum mechanics examination without proper anti-cheating protocols." Vex-Nine peered through the reinforced transparent aluminum window into the examination chamber. There sat Marcus Webb, looking remarkably calm for someone who had just caused the most expensive security system in the galaxy to have what appeared to be a nervous breakdown. The human was reviewing his notes, occasionally glancing up at the observation window with what could only be described as mild amusement. "Has anyone asked the human what he thinks about this situation?" Professor Klix's 4 nostrils flared. "Ask the human?" "Commander, the protocols clearly state that examination subjects should not be made aware of our security measures." "Well, the protocols also assume our security measures actually work," Vex-Nine replied dryly. A thunderous crash echoed from the supply closet, followed by what sounded suspiciously like sobbing. The Mentari Beast was apparently having some sort of emotional crisis. Dr. Thyra Moonwhisper, the Academy's head of xenopsychology, approached the group with her characteristic floating gait. Her species, the ethereals, never quite seemed to touch the ground properly. "Commander, I've been observing the beast's behavior patterns, and I believe I know what's happening." "Please tell me you have good news, Doctor." "Well, that depends on your definition of good news." Her voice carried that particular tone that academic types used when they were about to deliver information that would ruin everyone's day. "The Mentari Beast isn't malfunctioning, it's terrified." "Terrified? Of what?" "Marcus seems like a perfectly pleasant young man." "That's exactly the problem. The beast reads minds, Commander. It can sense thoughts, intentions, and mental patterns from vast distances. But humans," she paused dramatically, clearly enjoying her moment in the spotlight. Human minds are apparently so chaotic, so unpredictable, and so fundamentally alien that the Beast can't process them properly. Vex-Nine felt one of his infamous headaches coming on, the kind that usually resulted in someone getting transferred to a monitoring station in the middle of empty space. Are you telling me that our million-credit anti-cheating system is afraid of human thoughts? Not afraid, exactly. More like overwhelmed. Imagine trying to read a book where every page is written in a different language, some of which haven't been invented yet, and the words keep changing while you're looking at them. Lieutenant Zorb's tentacles had gone completely limp, so the human could be cheating right now, and we'd never know. Oh, it gets better. Dr. Moon Whisper continued with the kind of cheerfulness that made everyone else want to hide. I ran some preliminary scans on the human's neural patterns. His brain activity during a simple math problem resembles what most species would consider a declaration of war. Wonderful. Just wonderful. Vex-Nine turned to stare at Marcus through the window again. The human had apparently finished reviewing his notes and was now doing what appeared to be some sort of breathing exercise. So what you're telling me is that we have no way to monitor whether the human is cheating or not? Actually, sir, Zorb interjected, technically, if the Beast can't read his mind, then it can't detect cheating thoughts either. Maybe we should just trust him? The silence that followed was so profound that they could hear the Mentari Beast whimpering 3 rooms away. Trust him. Professor Clix's voice went up several octaves. Trust a species that invented something called reality television and thought it was entertainment? A species that considers Florida Man a legitimate news category? Dr. Moon Whisper cleared her throat. To be fair, Professor, humans also invented jazz music, and several of their mathematical theorems have proven quite useful. They also invented something called pineapple pizza, Clix countered. I rest my case. Commander Vex-Nine rubbed his temples with 2 hands while using the other 2 to gesture at the chaos around him. Here they were, some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, reduced to arguing about human dietary choices because their psychic guard dog was having an existential crisis. All right, people, here's what we're going to do. Dr. Moon Whisper, I want you to figure out exactly what's happening in that human's head that's causing our beast to lose its collective mind. Professor Clix, you're going to design alternative anti-cheating measures that don't rely on telepathy. And Zorb. Zorb. Yes, sir? You're going to explain to the Academy Board why we need to restructure our entire security system, because one human student makes our million-credit psychic creature hide in the closets. Another crash echoed from the supply room, followed by what sounded distinctly like alien cursing. Sir, came a voice from the intercom. The human is requesting permission to begin his examination. He says he's been waiting for 47 minutes, and would like to know if there's a problem. Vex-Nine looked around at the assembled faculty, all of whom suddenly found the floor, ceiling, or their own appendages fascinating to study. The most advanced educational institution in known space had been brought to a standstill by a single human who probably didn't even realize what was happening. Put me through to the examination chamber. Marcus Webb. This is Commander Vex-Nine. We're experiencing some technical difficulties with our security systems. Are you comfortable proceeding with the examination without our standard monitoring protocols? The human's voice came through clearly, with just a hint of what sounded suspiciously like laughter. Commander, I've been sitting in here for nearly an hour listening to what sounds like a very large creature having some sort of breakdown in the next room. I'm guessing your standard monitoring protocols involve something that doesn't particularly like humans? The faculty exchanged glances. Either the human was incredibly perceptive, or he had somehow figured out their security measures, which would be impressive and terrifying in equal measure. Something like that, yes. How did you know? Well, sir, back on Earth we have a saying, when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. You've got some sort of psychic monitoring system, and it doesn't work on humans. Am I close? Professor Clix made a sound like a deflating balloon. The human deduced our entire security protocol in under an hour. To be fair, Marcus's voice continued, it wasn't that hard to figure out. Every other species that took examinations here looked nervous, like they were being watched. I felt perfectly relaxed, which seemed odd for such an advanced institution. Plus, there's been crying coming from the supply closet for the last 20 minutes. Dr. Moonwhisper was frantically taking notes. Fascinating. The human mind makes logical deductions based on environmental observation rather than relying on telepathic or empathic input. It's like they've developed reasoning skills specifically to compensate for their inability to read minds. Dr. Moonwhisper, Vex-Nine said slowly. Are you suggesting that humans are smart because they can't read minds? Among other things, yes. Think about it, Commander. Every other species in the galaxy relies at least partially on telepathic or empathic connections for communication and problem-solving. Humans had to develop purely logical reasoning systems because they're essentially psychically deaf. So they're handicapped? Lieutenant Zorb asked. Or supremely adapted? Dr. Moonwhisper replied. They've created an entire civilization based on verbal communication, logical reasoning, and something they call educated guessing. It's remarkable. Meanwhile, Marcus had apparently decided to take matters into his own hands. Commander, if it would make everyone more comfortable, I'd be happy to take the examination in full view of the observation window. You can station as many non-telepathic monitors as you'd like. I understand the need for academic integrity. Vex-Nine found himself in the unusual position of actually liking this human. Despite causing complete pandemonium, Marcus was being remarkably reasonable about the entire situation. That's very gracious of you, Marcus. But I'm curious, how do we know you won't cheat without our beast to monitor your thoughts? Well, sir, I suppose you'll just have to trust that I'm honest. I know that's probably a foreign concept for species that can literally read minds, but it's pretty much how humans have been doing things for thousands of years. Trust. There was that word again. The concept was so fundamental to human society that they had built their entire civilization on it, but yet it was practically alien to most galactic species who could simply verify honesty telepathically. Very well, Marcus. We'll proceed with standard visual monitoring, but I have one question for you. Yes, sir? How did you score so highly on our entrance examinations if human minds are so chaotic and unpredictable? The silence stretched for several seconds before Marcus answered, and when he did, there was definitely laughter in his voice. Commander, have you ever tried to understand human mathematics, human physics, or human philosophy? Our entire approach to science is based on being confused, admitting we don't know something, and then stubbornly refusing to give up until we figure it out. We call it the scientific method. But honestly, it's just organized confusion with really good record-keeping. Professor Clicks was now making sounds that resembled a malfunctioning air recycling unit. Organized confusion? They built interstellar travel capabilities using organized confusion? And it gets worse, Professor, Dr. Moonwhisper added helpfully. I've been reading their academic papers. Humans regularly publish research with titles like "We have no idea how this works," but it does, in a comprehensive study of things we don't understand yet. Their entire scientific philosophy is based on admitting ignorance and then trying to fix it. Commander Vex-Nine was beginning to understand why the Mentari Beast was hiding in the closet. Human minds weren't just chaotic, they were professionally chaotic. These people had weaponized confusion and turned it into a space-faring civilization. All right, everyone, here's the plan. We're going to let Marcus take his examination under visual supervision only. Dr. Moonwhisper, I want a full psychological profile of human reasoning patterns, Professor Clicks. You're going to help me explain to the Academy Board why we need to completely rethink our approach to examining human students. And the Mentari Beast, sir? Zorb asked. Another crash echoed from the supply closet, followed by what sounded like alien sobbing. Leave it alone for now. Maybe give it some therapy. This whole experience has probably been traumatic. As the faculty dispersed to their various tasks, Commander Vex-Nine remained at the observation window, watching Marcus calmly arrange his examination materials. The human seemed completely unbothered by the chaos he had inadvertently caused. Marcus, he called through the intercom, one more question. Yes, Commander. We're all humans like you. The pause was longer this time, and when Marcus answered, his voice carried a note of something that might have been pride, amusement, or possibly warning. Commander, I'm actually considered pretty normal by human standards. We have people back home who are much more creative thinkers than I am. Vex-Nine felt his headache intensify. If Marcus Webb was a normal human, what were their creative thinkers like? He was beginning to suspect that the Mentari Beast had the right idea about hiding in closets. 3 hours later, Commander Vex-Nine was seriously considering joining the Mentari Beast in its therapeutic closet retreat. Marcus Webb had not only completed his advanced quantum mechanics examination, he had solved 2 bonus problems that Professor Click swore were unsolvable, and somehow managed to derive a completely new formula that made half the faculty question their life choices. "Sir," Lieutenant Zorb announced, his tentacles drooping with exhaustion, "we have the examination results. Please tell me he failed spectacularly so we can send him back to Earth and pretend this never happened." He scored 112%. Vex-Nine stared at his assistant. "That's mathematically impossible. Our scoring system doesn't go above 100%. "I know, sir. Professor Clicks is having what I believe humans would call a nervous breakdown. He keeps muttering something about rewriting the laws of physics using finger paintings and interpretive dance." Through the observation window, Marcus was stretching and looking remarkably pleased with himself. The visual monitors confirmed that he hadn't cheated, mainly because there was literally no way to cheat on problems that didn't have known solutions until he invented them during the test. Dr. Moonwhisper floated over with her preliminary report, looking like someone who had just discovered that gravity was actually optional. "Commander, I've completed my analysis of the human's neural patterns during the examination. And? Well, the good news is that I now understand why our Mentari Beast refuses to approach him. And the bad news is that this understanding has fundamentally shaken my faith in everything I thought I knew about consciousness." Vex-Nine gestured for her to continue, though part of him wanted to crawl under his desk and wait for retirement. "Human brains operate on what I can only describe as controlled chaos. They simultaneously process multiple contradictory theories, maintain dozens of half-formed hypotheses, and somehow synthesize all of this into coherent solutions. It's like watching someone juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle through a hurricane, and somehow managing to solve complex equations at the same time." "That sounds terrifying." "It gets worse. While solving the quantum mechanics problems, his brain was also composing what appears to be a grocery list, planning a letter to his family, and running through the lyrics of something called a Rickroll. Humans multitask on a level that would cause most telepathic species to have complete mental breakdowns." Professor Click stumbled over, his usually pristine appearance disheveled and his eyes slightly glazed. "Commander, we need to talk. Privately." They retreated to Vex-Nine's office, where Clicks immediately collapsed into a chair designed for beings with half as many limbs as he possessed. "Professor, you look terrible." Yet human just revolutionized quantum mechanics using what he described as a hunch and some doodles. "Do you understand what that means? That we're all going to need stronger medication? It means that human intuition somehow functions as a form of mathematical proof." He literally guessed his way to solutions that our greatest minds have been working on for centuries. Vex-Nine poured himself a glass of Centauri brandy and seriously considered making it a double. "Professor, are you telling me that humans solve complex scientific problems by guessing?" "Not just guessing, Commander. Educated guessing backed by what they call gut instincts and hunches. They've developed intuitive leaps that somehow bypass traditional logical reasoning and arrive at correct conclusions through methods that are completely inexplicable." A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting access to the office. Marcus Webb stood in the doorway, looking apologetic. "Excuse me, gentlemen. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, but I wanted to apologize for any inconvenience I might have caused with your security systems." Professor Clicks made a sound like a deflating balloon mixed with a dying computer. "Inconvenience? Young man, you've just invalidated 3 centuries of established scientific methodology." Marcus blinked. "I did? How?" "Your solution to problem 7 should not be possible. You derived a unified field equation using what you described in your work notes as mathematical finger painting." "Oh, that." Marcus shrugged. "Yeah, I couldn't remember the traditional approach, so I just kind of worked backwards from what felt right. Is that a problem?" Dr. Moonwhisper, who had followed Marcus into the office, was frantically taking notes. "Felt right? You mean you solved advanced quantum mechanics using emotions?" "Not emotions exactly, more like pattern recognition. I don't know how to explain it. It's like when you look at a jigsaw puzzle and immediately know where a piece goes, even though you can't explain why. The math just felt like it wanted to go that way. Commander Vex-Nine was rapidly coming to the conclusion that humans were either the most advanced species in the galaxy or the most dangerous, and he wasn't entirely sure there was a difference. Marcus, can I ask you something? Sure, Commander. How did your species develop space travel without telepathic abilities, advanced computational systems, or apparently any understanding of your own reasoning processes? Marcus laughed, and the sound was surprisingly warm. Trial and error. Mostly. We built things, they exploded, we figured out why they exploded, then we built better things that exploded in more interesting ways. Eventually, we built things that didn't explode and decided those were probably the right approach. You developed interstellar technology through controlled explosions? Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of crazy. But yeah, basically. We call it iterative improvement through systematic failure analysis. It's very scientific. Professor Clix was now openly staring. You're telling me that humans advanced their technology by deliberately making mistakes and then learning from them? That's actually a pretty good summary of human scientific methodology. Yes, we're really good at being wrong in productive ways. Dr. Moonwhisper's note-taking had become frantic. This is incredible. Humans have developed an entire civilization based on structured failure analysis and intuitive problem-solving. They've turned being confused into an art form. Speaking of being confused, Marcus said, I have a question about your Mentari Beast. Is it okay? It sounded pretty upset earlier. The three alien faculty members exchanged glances. How exactly did you explain to someone that their mere existence had caused a psychic creature to have a mental breakdown? The beast is adjusting to new experiences, Vex-Nine said diplomatically. New experiences like human minds? You figured that out too? Marcus smiled. Commander. I grew up with a little sister who was afraid of clowns, 3 cousins who were terrified of butterflies, and a neighbor's dog that hid whenever it heard ice cream truck music. I recognize fear responses when I see them. Your sister was afraid of clowns? Dr. Moonwhisper asked, apparently filing this information under human psychological quirks. Most humans are, actually. We find them deeply unsettling for reasons we can't really explain. It's probably some evolutionary response to things that look human but aren't quite right. Vex-Nine felt a chill run down his spine. Marcus, are you saying that humans have evolved to be suspicious of things that appear normal but aren't? Among other things, yeah. We're actually pretty paranoid as a species. We question everything, trust very little at face value, and assume that if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. It's kept us alive for a few million years. The silence that followed was the kind of profound quiet that usually preceded either enlightenment or complete panic. Commander Vex-Nine was leaning toward panic. So let me make sure I understand this correctly, he said slowly. Humans have evolved natural defenses against deception. They solve problems through organized confusion. They advance technology through systematic failure. And their brains are so chaotic that they break telepathic monitoring systems. That's a pretty accurate summary, yes. And you're considered normal by human standards? Marcus's smile became slightly wider. Commander, I'm actually considered kind of boring back home. I'm an engineer. We have artists, philosophers, and theoretical physicists who are way more creative than I am. Professor Clix made a sound like a strangling computer. More creative? How is that possible? Well, our artists regularly create works that are supposed to represent emotions you can't feel, concepts that don't exist, and experiences that are impossible. Our philosophers spend their time arguing about whether reality is real, and our theoretical physicists write papers about parallel universes where the laws of physics work completely differently. Dr. Moonwhisper had stopped taking notes and was just staring. Your species deliberately thinks about impossible things? We call it imagination. It's considered a valuable skill. Some of our greatest scientific breakthroughs came from people who imagined impossible things and then figured out how to make them possible. Like what? Vex-Nine asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Well, heavier-than-air flight was considered impossible until we invented airplanes. Instant global communication was fantasy until we developed the internet. Space travel was pure science fiction until we actually started leaving our planet. Most of human technological advancement comes from people imagining impossible things and then being too stubborn to accept that they're impossible. Commander Vex-Nine reached for his brandy again. So humans regularly turn fantasy into reality through sheer stubborn refusal to accept limitations? Pretty much, yeah. We're very good at being unreasonable about what's possible. A soft alarm chimed, indicating that the Mentari Beast was attempting to communicate. The translation came through the office speakers in a voice that sounded distinctly traumatized. Please make the confusing one go away. Its thoughts are like trying to read a book written in fire while the words are dancing and the pages are singing songs that haven't been invented yet. It hurts to even be in the same building. Marcus looked genuinely concerned. Oh no, I'm really sorry about that. Is there anything I can do to help? You want to help the creature that's been hiding from you all day? Dr. Moonwhisper asked. Of course. It's scared and confused, and apparently I'm the reason. Back on Earth, we have a saying, if you break it, you fix it. I may not have meant to cause problems, but I still feel responsible. Professor Clicks was now staring at Marcus with something approaching religious awe. You feel empathy for a creature that finds your very existence mentally traumatic? Well, yeah, just because someone can't understand me doesn't mean they deserve to suffer because of me. The Mentari Beast's voice came through the speakers again, sounding slightly less panicked. The confusing one. It wishes to help, even though we cannot understand each other? If I can, yes. Though I should probably warn you, I have no idea how telepathy works, so I might make things worse by accident. Impossible. Things cannot be more confusing than they already are. Dr. Moonwhisper was frantically checking her instruments. Commander, this is remarkable. The beast's stress levels are actually decreasing just from the offer of help. Marcus stood up. Would it be okay if I tried to visit with the beast? Maybe if we meet face to face, it might be less scared? Marcus, Vex-Nine said carefully, I'm not sure that's a good idea. The creature is already traumatized by your mental patterns. Direct contact might make things worse, or it might help. Sometimes the best way to deal with fear is to face it directly. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Professor Clicks, Dr. Moonwhisper, and Commander Vex-Nine all exchanged glances that conveyed a mutual understanding. That was exactly the kind of question that humans asked right before doing something that would be remembered in history books. All right, Vex-Nine said, making what he suspected would go down as either the best or worst decision of his career. But we're monitoring everything. And at the first sign of problems, you're leaving immediately. As they made their way to the supply closet where the Mentari Beast had taken refuge, Marcus chatted cheerfully about human methods for dealing with frightened animals, apparently unaware that he had just volunteered for what amounted to first contact between two fundamentally incompatible forms of consciousness. Commander Vex-Nine followed behind, wondering if it was too late to request a transfer to that monitoring station in the middle of empty space. At least there, the worst thing that could happen was dying alone in the void. With humans involved, the possibilities were apparently limitless, and that was somehow much more terrifying. The future of galactic education was about to be decided by a conversation between a traumatized telepathic beast and a cheerfully oblivious human who solved impossible problems through organized confusion and good intentions. Vex-Nine made a mental note to update his resume, just in case.